Chapter 15, Part 2, page 238. At 1 o'clock, Jed starts restocking the shelves, and I'm still stuck behind the counter. It's wickedly hot, and there's a fly trapped in the store that keeps buzzing around and bumping up against the overhanging shelf above my head, where we keep a few packs of cigarettes and bottles of Mylanta and things like that. The droning of the fly and the tiny fan whirring behind my back and the heat make me want to sleep. If I could, I would rest my head on the counter and dream and dream and dream. I would dream I was back in the shed with Alex. I would dream of the firmness of his chest pressed against mine and the strength of his hands and his voice saying, "Let me show you." The bell above the door chimes once, and I snap out of my reverie. And there he is, walking through the door with his hands stuffed in the pockets of a pair of raggedy board shorts and his hair sticking up all crazy around his head like it really is made out of leaves and twigs. Alex. I nearly topple off my stool. He shoots me a quick sideways grin and then starts walking the aisles lazily, picking up really random things, like a bag of pork skin cracklings and a can of really gross cauliflower soup, and making exaggerated noises of interest, like, "This looks delicious," so it's all I can do to keep from cracking up laughing. He has to squeeze by Jed at one point. The aisles at the store are pretty narrow, and Jed's not exactly a lightweight, and when Jed barely glances at him, a thrill shoots through me. He doesn't know. He doesn't know that I can still taste Alex's lips against mine, can still feel his hand sliding over my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I've done something for me and by choice and not because somebody told me it was good or bad. As Alex walks through the store, I think that there's an invisible thread tethering us together, and somehow it makes me feel more powerful than ever before. Finally, Alex comes up to the counter with a pack of gum, a bag of chips, and a root beer. "Will that be all?" I say, careful to keep my voice steady, but I can feel the color rising to my cheeks. His eyes are amazing today, almost pure gold. He nods. "That's all." I ring him up, my hands shaking, desperate to say something more to him but worried that Jed will hear. At that moment, another customer comes in, and an older man who has the look of a regulator. So I count out Alex's change as slowly and carefully as I can, trying to keep him standing in front of me for as long as possible. But there are only so many ways you can count change for a $5 bill. Eventually, I pass him his change. Our hands connect as I place the bills in his palm, and a shock of electricity goes through me. I want to grab him, pull him toward me, kiss him right there. "Have a great day!" My voice sounds high-pitched and strangled. I'm surprised I can even get the words out. "Oh, I will." He shoots me his amazing crooked smile as he backs up towards the door. "I'm going to the cove." And then he's gone, pivoting out into the street. I try to watch him go, but the sun blinds me as soon as he's out the door, and he turns into a winking, blurry shadow, wavering and disappearing. I can't stand it. I hate thinking of him weaving through the streets, getting farther and farther away. And I have 5 more hours to get through before I'm supposed to meet him. I'll never make it. But before I can think about what I'm doing, I duck around the corner, peeling off the apron I've been wearing since dealing with the leak in one of the freezer cases. "Jeb, grab the register for a second, will you?" I call. He blinks at me confusedly. "Where are you going?" "Customer," I say. "I gave him the wrong change." "But," Jed starts to say. I don't stop to hear his objections. I can imagine what they'll be anyway. "But you counted his change for 5 minutes." "Oh well, so Jed will think I'm stupid. I can live with that." Down the street, Alex is paused on the corner waiting for a city truck to grumble past. "Hey!" I shout out, and he turns. A woman pushing a stroller on the other side of the street stops, raises her hand to shield her eyes, and follows my progress down the street. I'm going as fast as I can, but the pain in my leg makes it difficult to do more than hobble along. I can feel the woman's gaze picking up and down my body like a series of needles. "I gave you the wrong change," I call out again, even though I'm close enough to him now to speak normally. Hopefully it will get the woman off my back, but she keeps watching us. "You shouldn't have come," I whisper when I catch up to him. I pretend to press something into his hand. "I told you I'd meet you later." He moves his hand easily to his pocket, picking up seamlessly on our little charade, and whispers back, "I couldn't wait." Alex waggles his hand in my face and looks stern like he's scalding me for being careless, but his voice is soft and sweet. Again, I have the sensation that nothing else is real, not the sun or the buildings or the woman across the street still staring at us. "There's a blue door around the corner in the alley," I say quietly as I back away, raising my hands like I'm apologizing. "Meet me there in 5. Knock 4 times. Then, more loudly, I say, 'Listen, I'm really sorry. Like I said, it was an honest mistake.' Then I turn and limp back to the store. I can't believe what I've just done. I can't believe the risks I'm taking, but I need to see him. I need to kiss him. I need it as much as I've ever needed anything. I have that same pressing feeling in my chest, like when I'm at the very end of my sprints and I'm dying, screaming to stop, just to catch my breath. "Thanks," I say to Jed, taking my spot behind the counter. He mumbles something unintelligible to me and shuffles back towards his clipboard and pen, which he has left lying on the floor in aisle 3. Candy, soda, chips. The guy I made for a regulator has his nose buried in one of the freezer compartments. I'm not sure whether he's looking for a frozen dinner or just taking advantage of the free cold air. Either way, as I look at him, I have a flashback to last night, to the whistling of the air as the clubs came down like scythes, and I feel a rush of hatred for him, for all of them. I fantasize about pushing the old guy inside the freezers and bolting the door over his head. Thinking about the raids makes me anxious about Hannah again. News of the raids in all the papers. Apparently, hundreds of people all over Portland were taken last night to be interrogated, or summarily shipped off to the crypts, although I didn't hear anyone reference the party in the Highlands specifically. I tell myself if Hannah hasn't called me back by this evening, I'll go to her house. I tell myself that in the meantime, there's no point in worrying, but all the same, the guilty feeling keeps worming around in my stomach. The old guy is still hovering over the freezer compartments and paying me absolutely no attention. Good. I slip on the apron again, and then, after checking to see that Jed isn't watching, reach up and grab all of the bottles of ibuprofen, about a dozen of them, and slide them into the apron pocket. Then I sigh loudly. Jed, you need to cover for me again. He looks up with those watery blue eyes. Blink, blink. I'm reshelving. Well, we're totally out of painkillers back here, didn't you notice? He stares at me for several long seconds. I keep my hands clasped tightly behind my back. Otherwise, I'm sure their trembling would give me away. Finally, he shakes his head. I'm going to see if I can dig up some in the supply room. Grab the register, okay? I slip out from behind the counter slowly so I don't rattle, keeping my body angled slightly away from him. Hopefully he won't notice the bulge in my apron. This is one symptom of the deliria no one ever tells you about. Apparently, the disease turns you into a world-class liar. I slip around the teetering pile of sagging cardboard boxes stacked at the back of the store and shoulder my way into the supply room, shutting the door behind me. Unfortunately, it doesn't lock, so I drag a crate of applesauce in front of the door just in case Jed tries to come investigate when my search for the ibuprofen takes longer than usual. A moment later, there's a quiet tap on the door that leads out into the alley. Tap, 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 tap. The door feels heavier than usual. It takes all my strength to yank it open. I said to knock 4 times, I'm saying, as the sun cuts into the room, temporarily dazzling me, and then the words dry up in my throat, and I nearly choke. Hey, Hannah says. She's standing in the alley, shifting from foot to foot, looking pale and worried. I was hoping you'd be here. For a second, I can't even answer her. I'm overwhelmed with relief. Hannah is here, intact, whole, fine, and at the same time, anxiety starts drumming through me. I scan the alley quickly. No sign of Alex. Maybe he saw Hannah and got scared off. Hannah wrinkles her forehead. Are you gonna let me in or what? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, come in. She scoots past me. I shoot one last look up and down the alley before closing the door behind me. I'm happy to see Hannah, but nervous too. If Alex shows up here while she's here... But he won't, I tell myself. He must have seen her. He must know it's not safe to come now. Not that I'm worried that Hannah would tell on me, but still. After all the lectures I gave her about safety and being reckless, I wouldn't blame her for wanting to bust me. Hot in here, Hannah says, lifting her shirt away from her back. She's wearing a white billowy shirt and loose-fitting jeans with a thin gold belt that picks up the color of her hair. But she looks worried and tired and thin. As she turns a circle checking out the storeroom, I notice tiny scratches crisscrossing the backs of her arms. Remember when I used to come and hang out with you here? I'd bring magazines and that stupid old radio I used to have? And you'd steal chips and soda from the cooler, I finish. Yeah, I remember. That's how we got through summers in middle school when I first started logging time at the store. I used to fabricate reasons to come back here all the time, and Hannah would show up at some point in the early afternoon and knock on the door 5 times really soft. 5 times. I should have known. I got your message this morning, Hannah says, turning towards me. Her eyes look even bigger than usual. Maybe it's that the rest of her face looks smaller, drawn inward somehow. I walked by and didn't see you at the register, so I figured I'd come around this way. I wasn't in the mood to deal with your uncle. He's not here today. I'm beginning to relax. Alex would have been here already if he was planning on coming. It's just me and Jed. I'm not sure if Hannah hears me. She's chewing on a thumbnail, a nervous habit I thought she'd kicked years ago, and staring down at the floor like it's the most fascinating bit of linoleum she's ever seen. Hannah, I say, are you okay? An enormous shudder goes through her all at once, and her shoulders cave forward, and she starts to sob. I've seen Hannah cry only twice in my life. Once when someone pegged her directly in the stomach during dodgeball in 2nd grade, and once last year after we saw a diseased girl getting wrestled to the street by police in front of the labs, and they accidentally cracked her head so hard against the pavement we heard it all the way up from where we were standing, 200 feet away. And for a moment, I'm totally frozen and unsure of what to do. She doesn't bring her hands to her face to try to wipe her tears or anything. She just stands there, shaking so hard I'm worried she'll fall over, her hands clenched at her sides. I reach out and skim her shoulder with one hand. Shh, Hannah, it's okay. She jerks away from me. It's not okay. She draws a long, shaky breath and starts speaking in a rush. You were right, Lena. You were right about everything. Last night, it was horrible. There was a raid. The party got broken up. Oh, God. There were people screaming and dogs. Lena, there was blood. They were beating people, just cracking them over the head with their nightsticks like nothing. People were dropping right and left, and Lena, it was so awful. So awful. She wraps her arms around her stomach and doubles forward like she's about to be sick. She starts to say something else, but the rest of her words get lost. Huge, shuddering sobs run through her whole body. I step forward and wrap her in a hug. For a second, she tenses up. It's very rare for us to hug, since it has always been discouraged, but then she relaxes and presses her face into my shoulder and lets herself cry. It's kind of awkward, since she's so much taller than I am. She has to hunch over. It would be funny if it weren't so awful. Shh, I say. Shh, it's gonna be okay. But the words seem stupid even as I say them. I think of holding Grace in my arms and rocking her to sleep, saying the same thing, as she screamed silently into my pillow. It's going to be okay. Words that mean nothing, really, just sounds intoned into vastness and darkness, little scrabbling attempts to latch onto something when we're falling. Hannah says something else I don't understand. Her face is mashed into my shoulder blade and her words are garbled. And then the knocking begins. 4 soft but deliberate knocks, one right after the other. Hannah and I step away from each other immediately. She draws an arm across her face, leaving a slick of tears from wrist to elbow. What's that? She says, her voice is trembling. What? My first thought is to pretend I haven't heard anything and pray to God that Alex goes away. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock. Again. That. Irritation creeps into Hannah's voice. I guess I should be happy she's not crying anymore. The knocking. She narrows her eyes, staring at me suspiciously. I thought nobody comes in this way. They don't. Sometimes, the delivery guys. I'm stumbling over my words, praying for Alex to go away, grasping for a lie that isn't coming. So much for my newfound skills. Then Alex pokes his head in the door and calls out, Lena? He catches sight of Hannah first and freezes, half in and half out of the alley. For a minute, nobody speaks. Hannah's mouth literally falls open. She whips around from Alex to me and then back to Alex so quickly it looks like her head is going to fly off her neck. Alex doesn't know what to do either. He just stands completely still like he can go invisible if he doesn't move. And it's the stupidest thing in the world, but all I can blurt out is, You're late. Hannah and Alex both speak at once. You told him to meet you? She says, as he says, I got stopped by patrol, had to show my cards. Hannah gets businesslike all at once. This is why I admire her. One second she's sobbing hysterically, and the next she's completely in control. Come inside, she says, and shut the door. He does. Then he stands there awkwardly, shuffling his feet. His hair is sticking up all weirdly, and in that second he looks so young and cute and nervous, I have a crazy urge to walk right up to him in front of Hannah and kiss him. But she quashes that urge really quickly. She turns to me and folds her arms and gives me a look I swear she stole from Mrs. McIntosh, the principal of St. Anne's. Lena, Ella, Holloway, Tittle, she says. You have some explaining to do. Your middle name is Ella? Alex blurts. Hannah and I both shoot him a death stare, and he takes a step backward and ducks his head. Words still aren't coming very easily. Hannah, you remember Alex? She keeps her arms locked in place and narrows her eyes. Oh, I remember Alex. What I don't remember is why Alex is here. He was going to drop off. I'm still searching for a convincing explanation, but as usual, my brain picks that second to conveniently die on me. I look at Alex helplessly. He gives me a minute shrug of his shoulders, and for a moment we just stare at each other. I'm still not used to seeing him, to being around him, and again I have the sensation of falling into his eyes. But this time it's not dizzying. It's the opposite. Grounding, like he's whispering to me wordlessly, saying he's there and he's with me and we're fine. Tell her, he says. Hannah leans up against the shelf stocked with toilet paper and canned beans, relaxing her arms just enough so I know she isn't mad, and gives me a look like, you better tell me. So I do. I'm not sure how long we have until Jed gets tired of manning the register by himself, so I try to keep it short. I tell her about running into Alex at Roaring Brook Farms and telling her about swimming out to the buoys with him at East End Beach and what he told me when we were there. I choke a little bit on the word invalid, and Hannah's eyes widen. Just for a second I see a look of alarm flash across her face, but she keeps it together pretty well. I finished by telling her about last night and going to find her to warn her about the raids and the dog and how Alex saved me. When I describe hiding out in the shed, I get nervous again. I don't tell her about the kissing, but I can't help but think about it. But Hannah is open-mouthed again at that point and obviously in shock, so I don't think she notices. The only thing she says at the end of my story is, "So you were there? You were there last night?" Her voice is weird and trembly, and I'm worried she's going to start crying again. At the same time, I feel a tremendous rush of relief. She's not going to freak out about Alex or be mad that I didn't tell her. I nod. She shakes her head, staring at me like she's never seen me before. "I can't believe that. I can't believe you snuck out during a raid. For me." "Yeah, well..." I shift uncomfortably. It feels like I've been talking for ages, and Hannah and Alex have both been staring at me the whole time. My cheeks are flaming hot. Just then, there's a sharp knock on the door that opens to the store, and Jed calls out, "Lena, are you in there?" I gesture frantically to Alex. Hannah shoves him behind the door just as Jed starts pushing at it from the other side. He manages to get the door open only a few inches before it collides with a crate of applesauce. In those few inches of space, I can see one of Jed's eyes blinking at me disapprovingly. "What are you doing in there?" Hannah pops her head around the door and waves. "Hi, Jed," she says cheerfully, once again switching effortlessly into cheerful public mode. "I just came by to give Lena something, and we started gossiping." "We have customers," Jed says sullenly. "I'll be out in a second," I say, trying to match Hannah's tone. The fact that Jed and Alex are separated by only a few inches of plywood is terrifying. Jed grunts and retreats, closing the door again. Hannah, Alex, and I look at one another in silence. All three of us exhale at the same time, a collective sigh of relief. When Alex speaks again, he keeps his voice to a whisper. "I brought some things for your leg," he says. He takes the backpack off and sets it on the ground, then starts pulling out peroxide, bacitracin, bandages, adhesive tape, cotton balls. He kneels in front of me. "Can I?" he says. I roll up my jeans and he starts unwinding the strips of t-shirt. I can't believe Hannah is standing there watching a boy, an invalid, touch my skin. I know she would never in a million years have expected it, and I look away, embarrassed and proud at the same time. Hannah inhales sharply once the makeshift bandages come off my leg. Without meaning to, I've been squeezing my eyes shut. "Damn, Lena," she says, "that dog got you good." "She'll be fine," Alex says, and the quiet confidence in his voice makes warmth spread through my whole body. I crack open an eye and sneak a look at the back of my calf. My stomach does a flop. It's like an enormous chunk has been torn out of my leg. A few square inches of skin are just plain missing. "Maybe you should go to the hospital," Hannah says doubtfully. "And tell them what?" Alex uncaps the tube of peroxide and begins wetting cotton balls. "That she got hurt during a raid at an underground party?" Hannah doesn't answer. She knows I can't actually go to the doctor. I'd be strapped down in the labs or thrown in the crypts before I could finish giving my name. "It doesn't hurt that bad," I say, which is a lie. Hannah again gives me that look like we've never met before, and I realize that she's actually, and possibly for the first time in our lives, impressed with me. In awe of me, even. Alex dabs on a thick coat of antibacterial cream and then starts wrestling with the gauze and adhesive tape. I don't have to ask where he got so many supplies. Another benefit to having security access in the labs, I presume. Hannah drops to her knees. "You're doing it wrong," she says, and it's a relief to hear her normal bossy tone. I almost laugh. "My cousin's a nurse. Let me." She practically elbows him out of the way. Alex shuffles over and raises his hands in surrender. "Yes, ma'am," he says, and then winks at me. Then I do start laughing. Fits of giggling overtake me, and I have to clamp my hands over my mouth to keep from shrieking and gasping and totally blowing our cover. For a second, Hannah and Alex just stare at me, amazed, but then they look at each other and start grinning stupidly. I know we're all thinking the same thing. It's crazy, it's stupid, it's dangerous. But somehow, standing in the sweltering storeroom surrounded by boxes of mac and cheese and canned beets and baby powder, the three of us have become a team. It's us against them, 3 against countless thousands. But for some reason, and even though it's absurd, at that moment, I feel pretty damn good about our odds.